So hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. So as I told you earlier that we are going to cover some of the important topic related to the publications and writing of manuscript or writing of the scientific as well as medical document. So we will cover these important topic in a form of YouTube series. So this is the first session of our this series. So in this series basically we are going to cover one of the important guideline that we called as ICMJE guideline. So you can understand the importance of this guideline by that most of, like we can say, around more than 5,000 journals are following the ICMJE recommendations or ICMJE guidelines, and they are claiming they are following these recommendations. So it is very much important as the perspective of medical writer or a scientific writer to understand these guidelines, because these guideline we are going to cover in these guideline in a very detail, like you will understand each and every aspect whatever written in these guidelines, but you will get these all important topic in a form of series, like we will cover in short sessions. So this is our first session where we are going to discuss what actually ICMJE guidelines are, what is the history and why it developed. So we will try to understand like why there is a requirement to develop such guidelines. So we will try to discuss these kind of things. So let's start with our first introduction, like what actually ICMJE are. So you can see over here it actually refer to the international committee. So international committee of, you can understand it, it's a committee, it's an international committee of medical journal editors. So it's a kind of group where the medical journals editor are involved in the development of, or you can say is a over here you can find over here, like it's a global organization of editor. So all the medical journals editor are involved in this organization, and they are developing or updating these recommendations, so that we are going to discuss very soon what they actually related to. So you can also see over here like what they develop, the this committee or this ICMJE organization, what it developed the recommendation for the conduct, reporting, editing and publication of what scholarly work in a medical journals, and that's we called as commonly as a ICMJE guideline. So we are going to discuss like where these guidelines or this name of that particular guideline is derived, and what we called it earlier when these names are not derived in the form. So the basic objective, we can say the primary objective of these recommendations or ICMJE, to define or promote high standard, as I told you, in conduct, reporting, editing as well as publication in medical journal. Apart from that, it provide the guidance on publication ethics, like it ensure and provide the way or the format or the kind of documentation or the way that you can ensure the trust, transparency and integrity in medical research. So as I told you, we are going to discuss all these in very detail in the step by step manner. It also developed like widely accepted recommendation, as I already told you. Once we are going in deep of these ICMJE recommendation, you will find that they provided the recommendation separately for authors, for editors, for peer reviewers as well as publishers. It's not like for these recommendations are generally for the authors. No, these recommendations are for the author, editor, peer reviewer as well as publishers. So all kind of recommendation you will get in a single kind of document. Another thing is they foster uniformity in editorial policies across the biomedical journal worldwide. So you can understand, if we have a certain kind of guideline that we can implement on those journals, so that means if we say there's more than 5,000 journals are following the ICMJ recommendations, so that means these 5,000 journals are following the same editorial policies. So that means there is a kind of uniformity across these journals. So that's also, we can say, it is a kind of easiness for the authors, for reviewers, for peer reviewers as well as publishers. So these to follow the uniformity across these kind of journals. So now let's understand the history, like how these ICMJ guidelines are developed. So over here you can also say like these play in, as we already discussed, like ethical standard, transparency, integrity in medical research. Okay, over 4 decades, as we are going to discuss, like these guidelines are first come into the picture in 1978. So you can understand. So before going to this, let me tell you one very interesting story, like how these recommendations come into the picture and what is the reason. So you can understand the, basically, let me tell you one story. There is one secretary. What name of that secretary is Augusta Litwer. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it right or wrong, but yeah, that's the spelling. Augusta Litwer. She's a secretary of one of the eminent nephrologists, like if I remember right, is a Belding Scribner. So Belding Scribner is in a University of Washington at that time. So she is trying to submit a manuscript in a journal, but the manuscript is rejected again and again. And she got tired, okay, formatting again and again the manuscript and again submitting to the another journal and get rejection over there. Then again formatting. So it's a very tired process. Like she got tired again and again formatting this. So she is discussing that issue. One of the we can say as a chief medical librarian at that University of Washington, and what that chief medical librarian suggests to her, you can write this issue to those editors which are related to, like at that time there are some journals you can say like JAMA or New England Journal of Medicine, Annals of Internal Medicine, and he suggested you can write to them related to the issue. What then? She followed the that these that followed the same, and she wrote to these editors of these journals like JAMA, AIM, and these kind of New England Journal of Medicine, and asked them why they can't do some kind of uniform guidelines to submitting a manuscript, because it's a too hectic process, again and again formatting. So that's the point where these editor got these the thought of development on some kind of common guidelines. So then what happened? So like when she wrote around in 1968, if I remember it right, in 1968 she wrote to them. Then in 1969 they got in a chance to meet with different editors, like all the editors are meeting in American Federation of Clinical Research meeting that happened in Atlantic, at that time Atlantic City. And in 1970, so that there they discussed this issue, and in 1970 they agreed, these editors are agreed to form a uniform format for a like different for manuscript, submission of manuscript. Then what they did, they agreed on to use of one of the format that was very famous at that time, what that called as a index medicus. So which is the format earlier used by, or we can say the format of National Library of Medicine. So at that time, you can see 18 journals sign the agreement that they will adhere to these recommendations. So then what happened at that time? Again, like it's a kind of things that 18 journals are agree on this kind of issue in 1970. Then again, there is one meeting, you can say, we can say in 1978. In 1978, there is one another meeting in the Vancouver, in that time in British Columbia. So they met and they finally agreed to develop a kind of common guidelines, and they agreed on this, and they called themselves as a steering committee, right? They called as an international steering committee. That name later on changed to the ICMJE. So in 1978, when they agreed, they called themselves as a International Steering Committee. But after that, they renamed it as a ICMJE. So at that time, what they did, so that's why if you can see so many type of, one of the most common kind of referencing format is Vancouver, and this group is also known as a Vancouver group. So this group is also known as a Vancouver group. So that's here we can say in 1978, like the ICMJ was established in 1978 in where, in Vancouver, Canada. So at that time it's a British Columbia. So these are the editor, as I already told you, the famous editor, JAMA, AIM, Internal Medicines, as well as New England Journal of Medicine. At that time, they what they called it is a, they named it as a URM. You can check it as a URM. What URM is actually? This is the uniform requirement for submission of, for manuscript submitted to the biomedical journal. So that's that time they called it as a URM. It's not kind of ICMJ recommendation. So at that time it was named as a uniform requirement for manuscript submitted to the biomedical journals. So at that time it published in 1991. Okay, then what happened? These are the like different kind of updations, or we can say it's a kind of update we can check in the series of updation or timelines. So then the guideline is recorded and recognized and updated at different time interval. And now we can say it's these recommendation updated on the periodical basis, like in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and whatever time they are feeling like, okay, we need to update this kind of things. And so they updated it, and you can find the updated version on their website, which you can directly go to the ICMJ recommendation and you will find the updated document over there. In 2003, actually, the important part is from 1991, or from this time, the name is, we called it as a URM. Then they renamed it as a recommendation for the conduct, reporting, editing, and publication of scholarly work in a medical journal. So this is the name. If you go to the ICMJE website now, and you will find this name on the title of that recommendation. So that's the name which implemented in 2003, and it's going till now. Then in 2010, there is one exhaustive updation in these guidelines, like what are the challenges in the medical publications. All aspects are updated in these kind of guidelines. So there are several milestone, or several updation in these guidelines. So we are going to discuss in another slides. So till now, if you see, there are some most important guidelines related to the authorship guideline, related to the use of AI. So these all are updated in the current version of this uh, ICMJ recommendation. Another thing is, you can see from inception to today or till now, these ICMJ guideline or ICMJ continues set a benchmark, global benchmark for publication ethics and editorial excellence in biomedical journals. So that's why it is important. And whenever you are going to for any kind of industry, or any uh, joining the academic writing or medical writing or scientific writing, any kind of writing, then you are going to see these kind of recommendations. And you are going, when you are submitting a manuscript, there are some journals which directly write on their website, okay, we are following the ICMJ recommendation, and you can format or you can submit these disclosure form as per the ICMJ recommendation. So you need to understand what actually these are. Then, as I told you, what are the group? So as I told you, Vancouver group. So at that time of developmentation of these ICMJ recommendation, what are the group? What are the Vancouver group? What are the which are the editor of from which journals? So this is the list. Like in as I told you, that this is called as a Vancouver group. So this is the famous like major medical journals like Annals of Internal Medicine, BMJ, JAMA, the Lancet, the New England Journal of Medicine, American Review of Respiratory Disease. So these are the some of the important or major journals, medical journals, and the editor of these journals are made in Vancouver, and then they decide, okay, we need to develop these kind of guidelines. So now these are the major milestone as we are going to discuss, like in 1970 or 1978. So that's somewhere you will find 1979 or 1978. So it's a kind of in most of spaces are in 1978. So that the development of first publication of uniform requirement for manuscript submitted in the biomedical journal, then renamed it, as I told you earlier, it's a URM. So that then they renamed it as a requirement for medical manuscript submitted to the biomedical journal, as we earlier discussed in the previous slide. Then renamed it as a recommendation for conduct of this, and you can find this updated name on their website, or current updation of these recommendation on their particular portal or web portal. Then in 2010, the updation related to the conflict of interest, publication ethics, and reporting standards are added in this particular recommendations. Then in 2013, clarification added regarding the clinical trial registration, like how we can clarify in our manuscript or in our study, like clinical trial registration, and how we can write it. And the data sharing, you will find in so many manuscript, like, okay, but there is a one statement regarding the data sharing that is also defined by the ICMJE recommendation, and then statistical reporting as well. Then in 2019, these are expanded guidance on transparency, reproducibility, and research integrity. And in 2026, you will find, I think, in a Jan 2026, the last updated version of ICMJE recommendation. So that are more related to the strengthen the recommendation of AI in research, like the data availability and ethics in publication practice. So if you want really how you can use AI and what are the way you can acknowledge, or you can name, or you can how you can acknowledge the use of AI, that is also recommended by the ICMJE recommendation. So definitely we are going to discuss in upcoming part, like what ICMJE recommendation told us about the use of AI in the manuscript preparation. So I think that's the basic, like what we discussed in this session, like what ICM JE recommendations are or guidelines are, how they develop, like what is the reason. So the basic reason is to for uniformity across the medical journal, as well as transparency and ethical aspects, to deal with the all ethical aspect and focus more the ethical editorial policies. So these are the basic criteria of this ICMJ recommendation. And then we discuss the history, how it developed, and then we measure milestone, like from 1978 to till now in 2026, what are the major changes. And you can find so many changes, minor changes are there in the ICMJ guideline, but we discussed over here the major changes that happened. So thank you everyone for this. So this is our channel, like PubWrite Academy. You can definitely subscribe us and share this video with your colleague, those who can get help with this video. So